Hi there. Okay, so I am super excited because I want to share with you how I plan to generate returns that are 10 times what I'm getting from my short-term rentals. If we have not met, I'm Chiagozie Fawale. I am a pediatric anesthesiologist, a real estate investor, mom of three, business owner. I do different things, but tonight I am particularly excited about what I'm about to share because a couple of you have reached out asking like, oh, I think I'm interested in what you're doing. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing? And the fact is, it is no secret. It is business acquisitions. And today I want to show you basically, number one, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and why you may or may not be, think about adding this to your overall game plan. All right. If you're ready for any of the, just type something in the comments, right? And just, hit like, hit subscribe. And by the way, if you're done watching this and you have any, friends, colleagues who want to hear about this, feel free to share this with them. Okay. Now, if you know my story, you know that a couple of years ago, while I was expecting my third daughter, I got pulled from work. And just like that, it was like, oh, by the way, you'll be in the operating room tomorrow. So if you know my story, you know that a few years ago, I went to see my OB and I got pulled from work just like that. I was on call that Thursday, or at least I was supposed to be on call that Thursday, and I was told, nope, you'll be in the OR on Wednesday. And that was when it hit me that, you know what? If my salary could just literally just go out the window just like that, then I need to prioritize building additional income streams that could potentially replace my income so that if for any reason I either chose or had to stop working, then I'll be covered. Now, if you also know my story, you know that kind of took me down a path of finding models in real estate that gave you meaningful income in meaningful time. And I've been on the internet talking about this and, just in different ways, saying meaningful income in meaningful time. Because yes, over a long time, you can build certain things. But when you're talking about being a professional who has skills and you're trying to build something that can either replace your income or at least support you in a time of distress, you need something that generates meaningful income in meaningful time. So at the time I found short-term rentals, I was excited about it. I found rental arbitrage. I was really excited about it, and I shared about it. I talked about it. I even hosted conferences about it. But at about the same time, something else came on my radar. And now, if you also know my story, you know that it takes me a little while sometimes. Okay, it takes me a little while, but when I do, I'm up and running. Okay. So when I found rental arbitrage, I got my first 10 units in 3 months, and I hosted a conference and I was talking about it out there in public. I learned about actually the tax advantages of buying short-term rentals, and I loved it. And I said, you know what? Every doctor needs a Doris, because as a physician, you need to have a way, physician or professional, any kind of high earner, you need to have a way to, number one, make more, and number two, save on what you already make. And short-term rentals actually give you both. But as I'm doing all of this other thing came on my radar, and that was business acquisitions. Because as I learned, it kind of dawned on me that, you know what? Real estate is the great amplifier, okay? There are ways to generate cash flow, significant cash flow from real estate, particularly if you have like a ton of like just property. But what I see people do more actually is that they have an income generator on the side, and they then put that income into real estate, and that then becomes how they're able to grow and amplify their portfolios, right? So that while real estate itself is a vehicle that can give you cash flow, if you really want to turbocharge it, then you probably want to add something else that generates meaningful income that you can then use to supercharge it. You may argue with me. That's okay. That's my opinion. Okay? And when I came to this understanding, I said, that makes sense then, right? It makes sense because if you are a high earner, you already have that job being that like machine that's pouring income out. So for like your ground zero, you could literally just start with income from your job, use that to fuel your real estate, use that to grow your empire. But then after a while, if you decide you want to like really light this up, you may want another income stream that even has more income than your job that could potentially replace the job and now start doing what the job was doing, first of all, in addition to giving you even additional dry powder, if you may, to then fund your acquisitions. And that's when I said, okay, so really the trifecta is you have a job, you buy real estate, and then you have a business that can then do both. All right. But the question then became the business. Do you build a business or you buy the business? Now, initially, my idea was, oh my gosh, you build a business. I was watching all the Shark Tank. I was, trying to do fix and flips. I was trying to do all these things because I was like, yeah, you have to have a business that gave you all the income to actually build the business, build the portfolio. But I came across a training back in 2020. So yeah, it has been a couple of years now. Back in 2020. And the training was basically like, listen, you don't need to build the business from scratch. You could literally buy the business. And it was like, interesting. And then he hit me, of course, well, duh, all these other big companies, yes, they acquire others. They just take up others and put them into them for different reasons, right? So to compare building versus buying, right? When you build a business, okay, you're normally doing it all from scratch. It's your bright idea. It's your baby. You sit up at night and you're like, oh my goodness, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We'll paint the wall pink. We'll order donuts. We'll do all these fancy things. And that's our business. And then you have like a grand opening where you get your friends together and you invite your friends and family and they're your first customers. And you're like, oh my goodness, we're going to be millionaires from this business, right? And some people do start businesses and the businesses do take off. However, a large proportion of businesses that are started don't make it past the 5-year mark. A huge number of them don't make it past the 5-year mark. Why? The reason is because there's a lot of testing that has to happen. There's testing products, testing employees. You have to hire people. You have to fire the ones that don't work out. You have to build teams, you have to build processes, you have to market. You don't even know if your market will even accept what you want. You don't know if your family members were just like blowing smoke up your behind thinking that, telling you, oh, that's a really good idea because they didn't have anything at stake in it, right? So you're out in the marketplace now trying to build this thing from scratch, and some people succeed, but a good chunk do not, okay? But this is where buying comes in, because when you're acquiring a business, at least the way that I have learned to acquire, or the way that I'm working on it right now, should I say, is that we're looking for businesses that are already stable and cash flowing. I'm not trying to be a hero right now buying turnaround businesses. Some people do that, okay? I'm not trying to buy, businesses that are like decrepit and like broke and, all of that. I'm not trying to turn business around right now. All I'm trying to do is to buy cash flowing businesses who have owners that are either trying to retire or move on to other things for whatever reason. Okay? So picture this. Unlike the startup, I then go to find a business, let's just say a landscaping company, a med spa, something that like already has customers, already has products, already has branding, already has like, all the systems and funnels and follow-up machines that people would need and want to actually like pay them. And I'm not having to build that from scratch. So that literally the day that I sign a dotted line, I can make literally like $10,000 the very next day, right? Because I close on a business that is already generating, okay? I was talking with a friend last night and she said, oh yeah, the difference is like, the difference between ground up development in real estate and buying multifamily with tenants in it. And I was like, yes, exactly. That is the difference. With ground up development, you're building from scratch. You're getting all the permits and doing all the soil testing and doing all the architecture work. And eventually, yes, you make a lot of money, but all the things that could go wrong in that process is just like so much, right? versus buying a multifamily apartment complex with tenants in there already. The day you close, you literally have 95% occupancy in the building. That's the difference. Okay? So the model that I'm working with right now is that my goal is to buy businesses that generate enough cash flow to not only replace my existing income, but to then leave me with even extra that I can then use to buy more businesses and more real estate. Okay? So as I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking of, okay, how can I buy businesses that have significant cash flow, but also can help me create an asset rich portfolio, right? So that I also have assets to then shelter taxes with. You know, the whole thing about bonus depreciation. It works with businesses. It also works with short-term rentals. Yes, exactly. Okay. But this is where the money actually is, right? How do the numbers compare? Cost. So assuming you bought a property worth $500,000 for $500,000, right? A short-term rental, a luxury short-term rental. Okay, you put down 10%. I'm using the second home occupancy loan, right? So $50,000 down, maybe about $20K to furnish, and maybe another like $15K or so for your closing costs. So you're somewhere around $85,000. Assuming that property made you $100,000 in the first year, which is great, which is why I love short-term rentals, right? And you can buy one property, and that one property makes you $100,000 in 1 year. Okay, assuming you had a 30% profit margin, that is $30,000 that you just made for putting down just about $85,000 at total. That's amazing. That's why I love short-term rentals. Okay, that's why I love short-term rentals, because it's like that. $30,000, I can actually use it for something. It's not just bragging rights, okay? But this is where it gets really sweet, and this is what has gotten me really excited about buying businesses. And it is that if you bought a business for the same $500,000, right? You could also use a 10% down loan if you use an SBA loan, so the same $50,000 down, okay? But a business that you would buy for $500,000, at that price point, you're probably buying it at 1 to 2 times the multiple of the profit. So that means that $500,000 means that the business is probably making somewhere around $250,000 in profit. Profit, okay? So now you have the potential for $250,000 in cash flow. If you then take off how much, all your mortgage payments and stuff, you'll probably end up with about roughly $200,000 as against 30. Do you see why now I'm like, this is how I intend to 10x to get returns that are 10x what I'll get with short-term rentals? I'm not just blowing smoke. Okay? But you're probably wondering, well, Chiagozie, how do you fund these deals? How do you plan to fund business acquisitions? Well, it depends on the deal. Like I just told you, the SBA, the Small Business Administration, actually backs loans for the acquisition of businesses up to the tune of $5 million. So if you have a business that is worth up to $5 million, they will allow you to put down 10%, which is amazing. Less than your regular long-term rentals, just like short-term rentals, right? So with 10% down, and depending on which lender you work with, you may even find some lenders that will let you do some other creative things to bring that number down. Okay? But with just like with real estate, with short-term rentals, with business acquisition, you can also use creative strategies to now not only require 10% down, because in some cases you don't even have up to that much. You can leverage the business assets. You pull funds like you do with real estate and have like a syndication type model. You can do things like earnings. You can use like even the income from the business to fund the acquisition. It's wild. Like there are so many ways you can use to fund these things. Okay. But it will depend on what the business actually has in the form of assets, what existing debt they already have, what the owner is willing to do in terms of like possible like owner financing, for example. Okay. There are so many ways that you can get creative with acquisitions that the funding is usually not the deal breaker when it comes to all of this. It's usually not. It's a matter of what are you willing to do, just like it is with real estate. Okay? Now, for those of you who already follow me, like, you're probably asking, okay, so check, okay, fine, I'm sold on businesses. Okay, you know what? I want to buy a business now. What is the process? So this is the process that I'm currently working through, right? And the first thing is that I normally would go on a website like, say, Biz Buy Sell. Biz Buy Sell is probably the largest, maybe online repository of businesses that are available for sale. It is, like, it's usually on there. You find that business brokers would have listed the businesses. You may also sometimes find people that are listing their own businesses for sale by themselves. Okay. Usually when you're on there, you can then put in the criteria in terms of like where you want the business located, what kind of revenue you want it to have, the cash flow, the industry, all of that. You put that in and it spits out a number of results you can now search through. And when you find one that seems interesting enough, you then put in a request, like an inquiry of some sort. Okay. Usually what will follow is that if it's a broker, they'll usually send you what's called an NDA or a non-disclosure agreement. You sign that document basically saying, I will not disclose what is in this document. I'll keep it to myself. Okay. And then when you review that document, if what you see looks good, you can then set up for a meeting with the seller, either virtually or in person to actually go see the business physically. If you like what you see, you go on to the next step. You basically make them an offer. Okay. And then you negotiate the terms. You go back and forth a little bit. You may have to tweak your terms or tweak the price or tweak whatever it is. But when you eventually come to an agreement, you sign what is called a letter of intent or LOI. So if you're coming from the real estate world, you know that, when you make your offer, then you go under contract. Well, for acquisitions, they usually talk about, an LOI has been signed. Okay. Now, in the letter of intent, you also want to include terms of like exclusivity periods, for example, say, 90-day exclusivity period, for example, during which your team will then perform due diligence. The due diligence portion is very important because let me tell you, sometimes what you see on the internet is not what is in the books. Okay. So during your due diligence period, you are now having an accountant or at least a trained person, right? Go through looking through all the books, looking through all the accounts, looking through basically everything that has been provided to you as evidence that the business is profitable to see if it is actually true, to see if the way that you plan to run the business is actually viable financially. Okay, so there is financial due diligence, there is legal due diligence, there's also due diligence on even just the commercial, environment. Like, can I even do business the way I intend to based on what has been presented to me? So this portion is actually a very important part of the process because it is where you can identify possible pitfalls that could sink your investment. For example, we had one that actually liked the business, but by the time we looked through it and the accountant looked at it, they were like, well, I see these folks here are classified as contractors. They really should be employees. And by the time we ran the numbers of what it would take to convert them, it didn't make any financial sense anymore. All right. So after you've gone through due diligence, or even like as your due diligence is going on, if it's looking like it's working, like things are like they were billed, then you're working on your financing now. However you plan to finance the business. I've worked with a broker in the past, someone who now has access to the different financing options that I could possibly use. And then you close. And then after that, you'll expect to have some kind of a transition period between the prior owner and you. And you definitely want to work that into your letter of intent that the owner needs to agree that they'll be willing and available to have a transition period with you. And the length of that transition period will, of course, depend on how complex the operations are and how easy it is to really teach somebody new to operate the business. And what other support systems they have in the business for a new owner to be able to come in and take the reins. So the key thing here to understand though is that just like in real estate, it's a whole funnel, right? So you're going to start off with just like seeing a lot of businesses, and then you kind of filter down and say, okay, well, these are the ones that I actually want to look at. To now, okay, these are the ones that I actually reached out to. These are the ones that actually responded, right? Because big whoop, not all the brokers respond. It's wild. And then these are the ones that the numbers actually looked like they showed them online. Oh, wait a minute, these are now the ones that actually interest me enough to keep going. These are the ones that, so basically the funnel narrows down to the point where you eventually close on one, okay? And for me personally, in the whole process, I have refined what I have wanted. I have refined what I'm looking for. Like when I first started, for example, I was looking for businesses that were, very pretty small, because I felt, let me start with something small so that I kind of keep my hands, get my hands dirty or whatever, like test the waters and see. But the more I listen to my mentors, and I have a number of mentors, I don't just have one, they kept saying, like, listen, you do not want a small business. Like, you're not trying to get a second job. But I found myself like, oh, well, I just kind of want to do the little ones. And then my initial mentors were like, okay, no. Excuse me. You want something with revenue between 1 and 5 million, because that is small enough that you're not competing with the private equity guys, and you can still basically take the businesses and then flip them into the higher scale, should I say. And I was like, okay, so that was actually what I was searching for at first. But as time went on, and even as I worked with more people and I kind of built my confidence, I'm glad that I didn't get those ones that I was initially trying to get, because now I've totally changed my picture. Okay, but how am I looking for right now? 2 things. Number 1, indicators that the business is profitable, okay? And the second, indicators that the business has systems in place to maintain that level of profitability and possibly even higher levels of profitability by the time the sale is completed. Okay, so first thing, to not actually break this down and actually share with you my own current buy box. I don't suggest that this should be your buy box, because you may be having, you may be working with different resources and people and skills or whatever. But currently, this is what I am looking for, and you want to define what you're looking for when you start your search. The first thing for me is finding a viable industry that is of some interest to me. So initially, I was like, you know what? I don't care. Just give me any business, right? But then I have one mentor that said, no. You really need to find a business that you actually have some interest in, because otherwise it will be so boring for you. You hate it so much. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess he's right. I guess he's actually right, right? So viable industry, by that I mean an industry that's not like dying, right? Like for example, I'm not going to go buy like Kodak film, for example, right? Because no one is printing, well, let me not say no one. The general public right now is not printing, pictures of regular film, right? The second thing is revenue. So I have my revenue criteria right now. I am looking for businesses that have a minimum of $8 million in revenue. And I'm actually looking somewhere in the $20 million range right now, okay? For this, I want their profit margins to be somewhere above 20%. Actually, it's probably more like 25, but I'm still working on my mindset, particularly now that I've shifted my buy box to now be a little higher, okay? And with this then, I'm also looking now for an absolute cash flow number of around 2.5 million and more. Okay, so now of course if you take those 2 things, you can probably do the math, right? But the reason is, like I said, my goal is to replace not only my income, but also be able to buy more real estate and have extra to then buy more businesses. Okay, you see how like all this math is mathing right now. Okay, so that was number 3, or actually that was number 4. Number 5 is the number of employees. And I had this number of employee metric when I was looking at the smaller businesses, but I've simply carried it over now, even to now that I'm looking for the ones that are slightly bigger. And that is 10 employees. The reason that I want 10 employees or more is because I am looking for businesses that by the time the owner is gone, there is still a solid component or core, whatever, of staff, of people who are working in the business that can handle the different domains of the business. So either just the fulfillment, sales, operations in different forms, marketing, etc. So that if I'm coming in there, I'm coming in to basically see what they're doing. To basically be at the head of to own the business, not be in the business, not be in like the day-to-day nitty-gritty, but to kind of be basically owning the business from the form of like casting vision and basically directing high level affairs of the business, as against being in the weeds, dropping off food, like if it's like a caterer or something like that, right? All right. And then one more is the age of the business. So I'm not trying to be a startup. I'm not trying to be a grand startup, right? I'm not trying to buy a business and then now go buy a startup. That will make no sense, okay? So I'm looking for businesses that have shown that they have not only gone past the startup phase, but they've grown, they've weathered, the changes in life, for example, right? And that they have shown a degree of maturity that you don't find in startups. So that's my buy box right now. So businesses, okay. Oh, and then the industries that I'm currently looking at right now. So I've looked around in different industries, but some of them that still are of interest to me will be things in boutique medicine. So we're talking wellness, med spas, even just regular spas, honestly. Med spas, procedural type clinics. Okay, that's the medical part of me speaking. And then there's like the short-term rental host in me part that's looking for luxury travel companies, jet charter, yacht charter. And as a spin-off of that, also looking into logistics type companies. So trucking and I always laugh whenever I say that one because I'm like, yeah, check, because you want to buy a trucking company? Yes, I do. Okay. All right. Now, how do I find the businesses that I'm looking at? So I already mentioned one, which was Biz Buy Sell. But other ways that I'm also looking is that I'm also doing direct outreach. So I basically have a VA pull up a list of companies in a particular area, and I send out mail to those companies. I've done that in the past. Now, you get some of them will respond, and then you have conversations with them and see if they want to sell. Now, with that method, though, the fortune is in the follow-up, right? Because by the time you interrupt their day with the letter saying, hey, I want to buy your business, they may not be thinking about selling at the time. But if you follow up, be like, hey, don't forget me, right? But the third method, which is actually one that we're going really, really hard on this year, is the networking method, right? Which is basically what I'm doing right now, telling you what I'm doing so that if you found something that just, if you happen to be at a cocktail party or a business event or something, and someone was like, oh well, my uncle owned a med spa and I think he's trying to retire. He doesn't know what to do with it. You're like, hey, I know a girl, right? I know a doctor. I know a lady, right? I'm your lady, okay? I am that person, because I want to be the person that like you remember when somebody brings up the conversation and says, I think I want to sell my business. Who do I talk to? Send them to me, right? Because heck, if I don't buy their business, I know a bunch of people that are looking to buy. I'm in communities of people looking to buy. I can connect them, right? So yeah, send them my way. And if you bring a business that I potentially close on, I could even have a finder fee for you. Just say. Okay, so we're working our network, trying to let people know what we're doing so that we're not just sitting in silence, but we actually let you know what it is that we're doing. So hey, now you know what I'm doing. Now you know how I'm doing it. If you would like to follow the journey and basically just stick around, make sure you subscribe down below, because I will be sharing as we move along, as I have done with my short-term rentals. I'm still fixing up a short-term rental right now. I still have buildings that I'm working on as we speak. So it's not a case of either or. It's a case of we're doing this, but we're ramping up this one. right? So stick around, like, share, subscribe. But if you're watching this and you are a business owner that you're looking to, like you're considering actually exiting, you're considering retiring, you don't know, what's like how to actually do that exit, okay? Or like I said, if you know someone who's trying to exit their business, feel free to reach out. There'll be a link below to connect with us and with our team. And I can either be your resource or I can point you to a resource, okay? And then of course, if you would like to get linked up with the programs and communities that I'm involved in for acquisitions, also reach out. Listen, there is a whole generation of business owners retiring right now, okay? That there will be so many businesses for sale that I may even be on a mission to not let them just go to waste, okay? So that is why I'm saying reach out, and I'll feel free to, I'll happily connect you with the people that I'm working with, so that you can learn how to acquire your own businesses as well. And then of course, if you're watching this and you yourself have a deal that meets my buy box or is close or you're not even sure, same thing, the same link. Just send us a message and we will be in touch. All right, I hope you found this either informative, entertaining, or at least inspiring. If you did, like I said, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Definitely subscribe, because we'll be sharing, details and just things as we go along. And I really hope that something in this inspires you to go out there and do some big things, help some people, either retire or exit, and save jobs, do good and build wealth. Take care.